My name is Marco Delgado, and I'm from a small town just outside of San Miguel in northern Argentina. What happened to me took place on March 11, 2022, a day that started off like any other but ended with my entire life flipped upside down. I worked at a metal fabrication shop, grinding and pressing sheets of steel for auto parts. Every morning I got up before the sun, kissed my wife Daniela on the forehead, and caught the same dusty bus that rattled through our town like it always did. I wasn't a bad man by any means, just regular. And I believed in God, sure, but only in the way most people do around here. I said quick prayers when I was scared, I showed up to church when someone was getting married or buried, but deep down, I never really asked myself what I believed or why it mattered. I didn't have some tragic backstory or rebellious past. My faith was lukewarm at best, more of a tradition than a relationship. God was something I respected but kept at a distance, like an old teacher you don't want to disappoint, but also don't want to get too close to. If someone asked me whether I believed in heaven or hell, I would have nodded without much thought, then gone right back to scrolling on my phone or complaining about work. I lived for comfort, for the familiar: dinner with my wife, soccer on the weekends, and a cold beer when the factory shut down on Fridays. I thought I had life figured out. But I was wrong. So wrong. It was a Tuesday just after lunch and I was on my shift operating the hydraulic press. I hadn't slept well the night before, my head was foggy and my stomach felt unsettled. Still, I told myself to shake it off. We were on a tight deadline and the foreman wasn't the kind to show sympathy for headaches. As I leaned over a thick metal sheet, I suddenly felt something press hard against my chest. At first, I thought it was anxiety or maybe just the heat from the machines. But the pressure grew heavier, like concrete sinking into my ribs. The last thing I remember seeing was the machine shutting off by itself and the terrified faces of my coworkers running toward me as my body gave out beneath me. But what happened next, there's no other way to say it, it changed everything. I opened my eyes, but I wasn't in my body anymore. I was standing and watching myself lie motionless on the concrete floor. I could see everything with this strange, heightened clarity. The bright lights overhead looked sharper, almost like they were alive. I saw my coworker Mateo drop to his knees beside my body, yelling for someone to call an ambulance, while another guy ran toward the break room for help. But I wasn't scared. I wasn't panicking. In fact, I felt this strange calm, like I was being carried by something I couldn't see. I didn't understand it at the time, but I knew deep down that I had left the body I'd been living in my whole life, and for some reason I wasn't afraid. I looked down at what should have been my hands, but they weren't solid like before. They shimmered. It was like light was passing through them, but they still felt real. The sounds around me were faint, like hearing a song playing in the next room, but the emotions behind them hit me hard. The fear in Mateo's voice. The panic in the footsteps. The sirens getting closer. But I wasn't part of that anymore. Not really. I was somewhere else. And that's when it happened. Something in the air shifted and I felt it before I saw it. This presence, this overwhelming feeling that something, or someone, holy had entered the room. Then I saw him. Not like a vision or a dream, but like I was standing in front of someone more real than anything I'd ever experienced. He didn't have to speak. I just knew. It was Jesus. Not a man in robes or the figure from paintings. It was a presence that carried power, love, and truth all at once. I felt exposed in front of him, like he could see everything I had ever done, every lie, every selfish moment, every prayer I never bothered to pray, but I didn't feel condemned. I felt known. He looked at me with eyes that seemed to hold eternity, and even though he didn't say anything, I could feel it in my soul. He was inviting me. Not demanding, not forcing. Just reaching out his hand like he'd been waiting for me to say yes. And I did. I followed. The moment I took his hand, everything around us began to fade. The factory, the noise, even the people trying to save my life. It was like I was being lifted, but not in the way you lift something off the ground. It was deeper than that. We moved without moving, and the space we entered was... I don't even have the words. It wasn't a room or a tunnel or clouds like people describe. It was just this place filled with light, not blinding but warm and alive. It didn't shine on things, it shined through them. And that light somehow started shining through me too. In that moment, I felt like every part of who I was, my memories, my thoughts, my regrets, were open and laid bare. But I didn't feel ashamed. It was like he was helping me see myself clearly for the first time. He never said a word, yet I understood him perfectly. He was showing me my life, and not like a movie on a screen, more like I was reliving it. I could feel what I felt when I was a kid. I remembered things I hadn't thought about in decades. And I saw everything, not just what I did but how it impacted other people. Moments I thought were nothing, times I ignored someone who needed help or said something cruel, suddenly weighed heavy on my soul. They mattered. Everything mattered. But then I also saw moments where I'd done good without even thinking about it. A time I helped a man on the bus without expecting anything in return. A night I comforted my nephew when his parents were fighting. Things I had forgotten, but Jesus hadn't. He was showing me that nothing goes unnoticed. Every choice we make, every single one, is a seed. Some grow into love and light, others into pain. And I saw how my choices had left a trail behind me, reaching further than I ever realized. It was beautiful and heartbreaking all at once. As we moved deeper into this place, I began to understand things that had always confused me. Jesus didn't just show me my life, he showed me truth. Not like facts or stories, but this deep, soul-level knowing of how things really work beyond this world. One of the things he revealed shook me to the core. I had always heard people talk about spirits lingering after death, about souls staying around, visiting family members, showing up in dreams or through mediums. And honestly, I believed it. I thought maybe people stuck around for a while, watching over us. But what he showed me, it changed everything. Jesus let me see people on earth. Real people, mourning, crying, reaching out to their loved ones who had passed. I saw a woman holding her father's shirt, weeping into it, begging for a sign that he was still near. Then the room shifted. What looked like her father appeared, saying words of comfort. She smiled through her tears, thinking it was him. But Jesus let me see what was actually happening. The image twisted. What looked like her father began to melt away, revealing something darker, something false. It wasn't him at all. It was a spirit of deception. A mask. A lie. It used her grief to pretend. And suddenly I knew, these spirits people talk to, the ones they think are their loved ones, they're not. They're not from God. They're meant to pull people away from truth, away from Christ. This hit me so hard because I realized how many people, even Christians, fall for this. We want comfort so badly, we're willing to listen to anything that feels spiritual. But Jesus made it clear, when we die we don't stick around. Our soul doesn't hover or wander. The moment we leave our body, we're either brought into his presence, or separated from it. There is no in-between. And the enemy uses that confusion to trick people into thinking they don't need Jesus, that they can find peace in signs and voices and rituals. But it's all a distraction. A clever, cruel trick. And I saw how many were falling for it. After seeing all of that, I remember feeling this deep sorrow, not just for myself but for everyone still living who didn't know the truth. People are chasing after comfort, after closure, but they're being led further away from the only one who can actually give it. Jesus didn't show me these things to scare me. He showed me out of love, like a father warning his child not to touch fire. And in the same way he was showing me the fire so I could go back and warn others. My chest felt heavy with the weight of it all. I wasn't just seeing how broken the world was, I was feeling it in my spirit. Then Jesus turned to me and spoke, not with his mouth but with something deeper. I felt it in my soul. He said, "I brought you here so you could testify." Those words burned into me. I knew what he meant. This wasn't just for me. I wasn't shown all this to keep it to myself. He was sending me back, not because I was special, not because I earned it, but because people needed to hear it. People needed to know what really happens after we die. That we don't get unlimited chances. That eternity doesn't begin later. It begins the moment we take our last breath. I didn't argue. I didn't ask questions. I just nodded, still overwhelmed by the presence of his mercy. The next thing I remember was waking up in a hospital bed. My wife Daniela was sitting next to me crying so hard her whole body shook. A doctor stood nearby, explaining that I had gone into sudden cardiac arrest and that my heart had stopped for nearly 4 minutes. They kept calling it a miracle. But I knew it wasn't just that my body came back, it was that God had allowed my soul to return. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of what I had seen and heard. I wasn't the same person. I knew I couldn't go back to life the way it was before. From that day forward, everything in me changed. The things I used to care about, money, routine, the little annoyances of life, they didn't mean much anymore. I couldn't go back to just existing, just clocking in and out like nothing had happened. I felt this urgency, like I was carrying a message in my bones. I started reading the Bible with new eyes, like it was alive, and I couldn't get enough of it. I prayed with a heart that actually meant the words. And slowly I started telling people what I saw, starting with my family, then friends, and eventually anyone who would listen. At first I was nervous. I'm not a pastor, I'm not a preacher. I'm just a guy who went to work one day and died. But I knew God didn't bring me back so I could keep quiet. Every time I shared my story, people leaned in. Some cried. Some sat in silence thinking. Some even got angry, like the truth was too hard to accept. But that didn't stop me, because I remembered what I saw. I remembered the people who thought they had time but didn't. I remembered the souls that were lost, not because God didn't love them, but because they never turned to Him. And I knew I couldn't waste the second chance He gave me. So if you're watching this right now, I want you to hear me, not with your ears but with your heart. You don't know how many days you have left. None of us do. But you have this one, right now. And what you do with it matters. Jesus is real. Eternity is real. And the moment your soul leaves your body, your decision is sealed. Don't wait until it's too late. I'm not telling you this to scare you. I'm telling you because I love you enough to risk sounding crazy if it means even one soul wakes up. Jesus didn't show me these things for nothing. He showed me because you needed to hear it. If this story touched your heart, I want to invite you to share it. Leave a comment and tell me what you believe or if you've ever experienced something similar. More than anything, I ask you to really seek Jesus for yourself. Not through religion, but through relationship. Time is short, but His mercy is still available. Don't waste another second. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell. We're going to keep sharing real stories like this, testimonies that remind us that this life is just the beginning. Thank you for listening. God bless you. I pray this changes everything for you like it did for me.